Now, for the last decade or so, we were told that diversity is our strength. Just like a gym bro pump himself with steroids and becomes jacked, so too a nation just pumps itself with diversity and becomes very powerful. This is why I'm very concerned about China's new DeepSeek AI. Can you imagine just how many Indians they must have taken into China in order to develop an AI that's better than ChatGPT? Like, I just hope that there are some Indians left within India so that America can take some more, right? Like, this is how geopolitics are done. It's like you have strong nations just like plundering the population of other nations, like, to develop their AIs, right? And so this was the mindset up until now, but something interesting is happening. You see, as Trump comes up, and he's barely like a couple of days into office, deportations started happening. And right now they're at the stage where they're not deporting the abuelita, or in the case that the abuelita does get deported, you find out that she was part of a human sex smuggling ring, because they're deporting the criminals first, right? So they're talking about that the deportations will start in waves. And the first wave of people are the ones that are actually wanted for various criminal activity. And this is to actually horrify the presidents of other nations, right? Like, they don't want the diversity. They want to enrich themselves. It horrified the Colombian president. It horrifies the Vatican. Now it horrifies the Haitian leader. And you're reading these articles, like from the Los Angeles Times, and it talks about how they're calling this catastrophic, and the Pope is worried about it, and it's not Christian, blah blah blah. 200,000 people will be forcibly returned to Haiti, and again, this is treated like some sort of natural disaster, a humanitarian crisis, if you will, right? Like, all of these people returning to their nation state is a time of mourning and horror. At least this is the vibe that I get from reading the newspapers. The Haitian president said that Trump considers his country to be a shithole, and therefore he doesn't think that Trump actually cares about Haiti. Which is, like, very interesting. Like, I see a man sitting on a golden throne, surrounded by opulence, and then when I see pictures of the actual Haitian population, I tend to think that maybe he himself doesn't care that much about Haiti. But, what do I think? Yeah, here's the interesting part. Nowhere in the article does it mention, like, why this is a bad thing for Haiti. Like, the same thing with Colombia. Like, they don't mention why these world leaders are upset over their people coming back. And so, this is why I made the video, to enlighten you of what's happening. Now, in his presidential campaign, there's a video where Trump says that a lot of these nations have opened their mental asylums, they have opened their prisons, and they're basically taking advantage of the Biden administration, who allows everyone to go in unchecked, and they're basically, like, sending their criminals. And they're sending the people that are mentally unwell into the United States to make it someone else's problem. Now, from a geopolitical standpoint, again, I don't know if this is true or not. I understand, like, fact checkers went up in arms. It's like, there's no evidence, blah, blah, blah. But from a geopolitical standpoint, if I was El Presidente and there's a nation dumb enough to actually allow anyone past their borders without screening, it would make, like, cynical sense, right? Like, it's financially profitable to empty your prisons. Like, at the end of the day, if you have a prisoner, you gotta house them, you gotta feed them, you gotta pay them for medical treatment. And so if you make that person someone else's problem, well, you freed up another place in the prison. Now you can arrest a political dissident. Now you can arrest a political opponent, right? And on top of that, you don't gotta pay for the actual criminal. You make it someone else's problem, as I mentioned. But whether Trump is through with this or not, you don't really need to have, like, the leaders opening the prisons and the mental asylums. Like, the criminals, they travel themselves. I remember when Romania joined the European Union, we had a huge problem with pickpocketers back in the day. To the point where if you went into a crowded market, you had to do the Romanian walk. Like, your hands needed to touch your wallet at all times. And so, when the European Union allowed us in, all of a sudden, the pickpocketers were gone. Like, you noticed that the streets were safe, that no one was stealing anything. And why was that? Well, let's put it this way. How much do you think the pickpocketer could have stolen in Romania? Well, not much, like at the time, if they were managing to steal like $3 worth of goods a day, that was like a big haul. But if they went to Germany, if they went to France, I mean, they could steal like hundreds of euros there, right? So, like, it's financially incentive for the criminal underworld. The same thing happened with beggars. Like, when we entered the European Union, all of a sudden, no more beggars. And again, like the cold-hearted financial calculation. Like in Romania, they could beg and maybe make $1 or $2 a day, or they could go to France, and they were begging such insane numbers that even the professors here that were high school teachers or university professors, they were looking with envy towards how much a beggar is making in France, right? So like you don't really need to open the prisons like Turkey did when it released people into Greece, allegedly. You just let things go, and like if there is a nation that has more wealth and that has more possibilities, it's not just the doctors and engineers that are going there. It's like everyone wants to go there, right? Like regardless of what economic activity you're performing, legal or not, it is more beneficial to do it in a country where people have more cash. Okay, so with that in mind, you can understand the problem if, and this is like the case with the deportations here, if like all of a sudden you have 200,000 criminals arriving at your doorstep. Like, it's a logistical nightmare. What do you do with them? Well, if you don't lock them up, your crime rates are going to skyrocket. Like, you're going to have people that probably form their own gangs in the United States, that have their own activities over there, and now they're coming over here. They're going to fight for the turf. They're going to fight for the territory. It's going to get bloody and messy. They're going to have to find a way to bring their businesses back, so now they're selling shit to your people. Like that's the main issue. That's the primary concern. The second, it's like, okay, you lock them up. Well, now you gotta house them, you gotta feed them, you gotta clothe them, right? And it looks bad as well. Like, all of a sudden, you're the president that's locking up, like, 200,000 people. Because, like, again, allegedly, every single one of them that's being deported has a criminal record. And the criminal record isn't that they went into the United States illegal. Like, no, like an actual criminal record where they have committed crimes in the United States. And apparently, like, these are bad crimes. Like, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, like, all of that stuff. You're having it go into Colombia back, or Haiti, or whatever nation state they're coming from, right? Like, what do you think those people are going to do there? And this is why it's a human calamity. This is why, like, all these nation leaders are freaking out. They're not going to say the silent part out loud, but this is the problem. Like, they're going to have to deal with a no-win situation, basically, right? Because it's one thing when you have criminals and you deal with them over a long span of time, like punishing 200,000 people. Well, okay, like you start by locking up a couple of them that you catch, and then as they're finishing the sentence, more people come in, But when you have to deal with 200,000 at once, I don't want to be in his shoes. And again, like, as I mentioned before, it's a no-win situation. If you allow them on the streets, the crime rate skyrockets. If the crime rate skyrockets, then people blame you, because you're in charge of providing for their safety, right? And when I say the crime level skyrockets, a lot of people will say, well, it's Haiti. Like, the crime level is already high. The sky is the limit, my friend. Like, you can get even more crime. Like, it can always get more worse, right? Like, no matter how much people are used to shit, it can always escalate. Like, adding 200,000 in the mix is not a drop in the ocean. Like, it's actually quite a problem. And so, but even for the politicians, like, imagine this, right? Imagine that you're a politician and you're taking bribes from the criminal underworld. Because, like, that's how the criminal underworld functions. Like, you cannot have organized crime without the consent of the government. And so, you have politicians that are taking money from one gang, and now you have all the people coming back from the United States, and they're another gang. And now they're fighting the people that are paying you, and you're not making your cut. You're not making your money. Like, this is horrifying for a politician. Worst case scenario. And now you have to, like, reestablish connections. You got to see who wins. And even after, like, you may be afraid because, like, what if the ones who win aren't trustworthy? What if they're paying your political opponent? See? It's not good for business. And this is why, like, all of these nations are really upset about Trump deporting people. It has nothing to do with, like, the humanitarian compassion or, like, no. No. Let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.